and welcome to the Amec In-house webinar for March 2025. We are delighted to be joined by Florian Muller, who's Head of Insights Generation at Audi, for a great session on how we can go from data to actionable recommendations. And this is part of the Amec In-house Special Interest Group. It's a group of people made up of communications professionals, insight professionals who work in-house at various brands and share knowledge to help improve measurement and insight across the industry. My name is Kyle Mason. I run external insights at Shell. I am also an Amec board director and chair of the Amec In-house group. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining today. I'll talk a little bit later about some of the group's objectives and a bit more about what we do, and I'll also talk about the upcoming Amec Summit, which we are all very, very excited to be joining later on this year. But for now, I want to give the floor straight over to Flo, Head of Insights Generation at Audi. I actually had the pleasure of working with Flo not too long ago. Flo, I think you've been at Audi now for about 9 years, but we worked together in the insight and evaluation industry in the past, so he's one of the leading thinkers in the sector. And Flo, over to you.
Yes, thank you, and hi everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm really happy to be here today and have the opportunity to share some insights from our work here at Audi. Special thanks to Amec and Kyle for hosting and moderating this session. As you mentioned, it was really an honor working with you in the past. Today, really, it's a pleasure for me to be part of this community. And today, I want to take you behind the scenes and show you how we use, let's say, real-time insights at Audi, not just to monitor what's happening, but also to actively shape our communication campaigns, support global product launches, and ultimately drive value for our brand. It will not just be theory today. I will walk you through a real-world use case, the launch of the Audi A6 e-tron, to show you how we move from data to decision making in practice. But before that, I want to tell you a bit more about insights at Audi comms, how we got to this point, why data is so important for us. With that, let's jump in. As Kyle said, my name is Florian Muller. I'm Head of Insights Generation at Audi. This is a small unit within the strategic communication in the headquarters in Ingolstadt. Use the QR code really quickly. Get in touch with me. I'm happy to connect, and I'm looking forward to some messages afterwards if you have some questions. Why is data so important? I think I don't need to explain that to you guys here today. You're all specialists, but maybe just a quick recap. Our world is developing and changing in an astonishing pace, and this is even more true for media and for communications. And as communicators, we have to cope with that. Social media obviously has completely changed the rules of communication. We have more content, we have faster content, we have 24/7 and worldwide information. Obviously, influencers have become a big topic, especially for us in the car industry. Real-time and audience-specific communications is a topic, and now AI comes into play and amplifies this complexity, which can no longer be managed with a good old gut feeling or experience. So data helps to navigate through this confusing situation. It reduces complexity. It enables us to understand the development of topics, to identify trends, risks, opportunities. It provides information about our relevant stakeholder groups, and it allows us to tailor our communication and our campaigns and even the formats to specific audiences. However, communicators traditionally struggle a little bit to use data when it comes to decision building. At Audi, it wasn't any different, and it still isn't today in some areas. But there were two developments that came to our aid here, and one is not exactly pleasant, but I want to tell you more about it now. The first crucial development actually was the diesel scandal or Dieselgate. Before Dieselgate, 2014, 2015, everything was going really great for Audi. Yeah, communication was pretty carefree. Media analysis were mainly used to pat ourselves on the back or for internal politics. I'm sure some of you know what I mean. At least that was how I've been told. I actually joined, as Kyle already said, 9 years ago, 2016. So in the start of the crisis, and I worked in issue management. So I really was in the middle of the diesel crisis. And that heat of this Dieselgate data became suddenly more important. Yeah? So this chart is from that time. This is why it ends in 2022, and the way back is not fully succeeded yet. The reasons for that, there are many, and they're not part of this presentation today. But what is part of this presentation are the years 2018, 2019. Yeah? That was when our reputation was rock bottom, and we got a new head of comms here at Audi. And suddenly the communication team wanted to know, how do we appear in the media? What do our stakeholders actually think of us? So we dusted off an instrument that has been developed at Audi back in 2011 already, but somehow had been forgotten, the reputation analysis. We ask our key stakeholders, journalists, and employees what mattered to them and how they perceived Audi compared to our benchmark. And at the same time, we obviously also analyzed media coverage in the same fields. And the results were rather shocking. 5 out of the 8 reputation dimensions were, if you want to say so, code red. You can see that here. And for us, that obviously was a signal that we need to change something as well in our communications. And this was the starting point for continuous topic-centered analysis at Audi. Now everyone wanted to know if the newly developed communication strategy, which was developed based on these results, if it was working, if we get improvement on these fields, if we get improvement on the opinions of our stakeholders as well as the media coverage. So this was the first development. The second one that helped us in the field of data analytics at Audi was indeed electric mobility. Because around the same time, we wanted to launch our very first electric model, the Audi e-tron that you can see here. And the problem for us was no one really knew how to communicate an electric car because we never had one before. So everyone was asking what is important. Because when it comes to regular combustion engines, the processes were well established. Everything worked hand in hand. We had former models that we could rely on. Gut feeling obviously was still king, but that was not true for electric mobility. So a project team came together with the goal to position this new model. And the first question was, what's interesting about an electric model? And we examined which topics were trending over time in that area. So looking back, that's no rocket science. And the results from today's perspective might be expected. I just realized that this is German. But what it says are the topic within electric mobility, like range or charging time or charging infrastructure or something like that. This is 10 years ago. That was 2018. So for us, that was a big step because there were quite big insights on that detail level that we haven't had before. We haven't used that before for positioning a model. And then in the next step, we looked at the competition. And back then, the only notable player was Tesla in that area. So we compared typical Audi strengths of combustion engines, because obviously we had no electric cars, with Tesla coverage. And we wanted to see how media coverage of a typical Audi compares to the Tesla models. So what we've seen here is that we couldn't win a race in engine performance, for example, because Tesla was just outstanding there. And they're partly ahead of us still, to be honest. So these were not topics that we wanted to focus on in our communications. We wanted to focus on typical Audi topics where the e-tron really excelled and where it was much better, for example, like the benchmark, like aerodynamics, quality, interior, or comfort. So from this analysis, we developed a complete narrative of a campaign, and we created individual events focusing on these differential topics. So Dieselgate on the one hand and the Audi e-tron on the other ones were like halo effects for us for data and communications at Audi. In both cases, we were able to demonstrate value of data-driven recommendations and the importance of data crew. Our small unit was integrated in the strategic communication department, and we started regular reporting in many different areas, and the demand on data for our communications increased significantly. Yeah. So that was the starting point for my little unit, Insights Generation. And this is an overview about what we're doing. We're doing cross-media analysis, defining goals and KPIs, identifying opportunities, benchmarking, monitoring, campaign consulting, and of course, evaluation. This is basically our setup. We break it down in 3 working modes that you can see here in a minute. The first one is the strategic pillar, strategic consulting. So we work on the communication strategy. We are in that team that builds up the communication strategy since that time. We support the strategic annual topic planning. We sit in the most important committees within communications. We advise the leadership team. We provide impulses, and we also report on the overarching goals within the communication strategy. Second pillar is that we also work in projects, like you will see in a minute. We get integrated in these projects very, very early and given an assessment on the current situation, key topics, benchmark analysis, and so on. We work together with the teams on developing goals and KPIs for the project. We advise on choosing media, interview partners, or influencers that we could use for a campaign. We focus on which topics should be prioritized or highlighted, and which platforms or events we should leverage. And in the end, obviously, we also conduct the evaluation. And last but not least, there are a lot of ad hoc requests coming in on a daily basis. Speaking opportunities, interview partners, assessment on trends, topics, or the competitors when they have a big launch, like Mercedes launched the CLA last week. So this is something, or 2 weeks ago. This is where we're focusing on as well. Yes, all right. That's enough for the theory. As promised, I want to show you or talk you into a real use case. And show you how we turn data into actionable insights. That also means I will show you real examples. We're not going through dummy data. And I will also highlight that we as insights consultants, we play a key role within these project teams. As I said, our case is the A6 e-tron world premiere that was last summer. And together with the Q6 e-tron, our SUV, this vehicle marks the beginning of a new era of electric mobility at Audi. Okay, so for a long time, the role of the data guy in communications was simply to check the reach of an event or the world premiere after the fact, but this barely scratches the surface of what data can truly achieve. Like most projects, the A6 e-tron launch was structured into 3 different phases that you can see here. In fact, the work began more than 6 months before what we call the end of secrecy, the beginning of communications. This marks the start for the first phase, the concept phase. Then we have the day or week of the world premiere, and that is when we take a role as a sparring partner. And then basically on the day afterwards, the evaluation phase begins, and I will walk you through that step by step, and want to show the impact that we have on these different phases. As I mentioned, a few months before the world premiere, the project team comes together to define the project's direction and how we want to position the vehicle. The team that is usually the content team, spokespeople, topic experts, social media colleagues, event organizers, but also we as Insights Generation, as consultants for the project lead. And what we do is we start gathering all available data in advance so we can enter the first meetings already equipped with a detailed analysis. We assess the benchmark in terms of positioning, threats, opportunities. We present insights from some surveys, maybe, and also the results of previous comparable Audi launches. This initial analysis usually helps us to define goals and KPIs and sets the direction for the project. And then over the next couple of weeks, we also share some best practices for creating a successful campaign. We support the development of key messages, and also very important, we refine invitation lists for important campaign milestones. For example, in this case, we had a pre-event under embargo where we invited journalists and influencers to prepare content that they then published on the day of the embargo, on the Big Bang of the world premiere. But we also look into driving events, etc., and see which journalists, which media should we invite there, which influencers could be interesting because they're focusing on that area, and we all do that based on data. Yeah, so the big day arrived. The world premiere is just around the corner. Press release is ready to go. Assets are planned. Media embargo is lifted. The vehicle usually is revealed. Yeah, either in a media event like auto show or an employee event. In this case, this really was an employee event right here at what we call the Piazza in Ingolstadt. So a lot of Audi employees were around there, and then we lifted the curtain. As an inside consultant, you are right in the middle of it. I could actually see it from my desk, but I was actually on my desk because obviously on that day there is still a lot to do as well. We usually set up a media dashboard. This is something that you can see here, to identify opportunities and risks early, to respond proactively as well. So we monitor on particularly negative articles or criticism, especially on our main topics. We look into our markets if they are all active. We scan the sentiment on all our social channels and assess audience reactions. Yeah, in some cases, an event might unexpectedly turn into full-blown communication crisis. That usually is not the case with the world premiere, but we had a big corporate event, our annual media conference last week, and that was pretty close to communication crisis. But that's why we have multimedia alerting system in place, providing then real-time notifications across all key media channels, basically. By the evening, the media outlets have published their reports, posts, and articles, and everyone is wondering, how did it all go? So we provide an early snapshot. We deliver a quick roundup summarizing the key takeaways as soon as possible, which media covered the story, who reported, who didn't, how many people did we reach. This is what we compile already on the first day. That also includes an executive summary with initial KPIs. Sentiment analysis, we're looking at the key markets to provide a first clear and concise overview. As I mentioned, this is all happening usually on the day of the event. And then the evaluation phase kicks off on the very next day, what we call the first flash. Early in the morning, we have a round where communication comes together, and this is where we provide this first flash. Usually, in the evening, we had bold numbers. Now we have a first real sense on how the event actually performed. Looking at net reach, engagement, number of posts and articles, sentiment, classic metrics, basically. And it also depends on what you've chosen before, like where you want to put a focus on. For example, on the right is a video share. This is very small for the A6, but for others. But for the others, for a driving event, for example, this share on video is usually much higher, for example. So this is the first flash on the next morning. And then after 3 days, after 72 hours, we compile what, in my opinion, arguably is the most important report. Because in the early stages, it's all about social media, plays a key role, and you obviously want to see what's happening there. But after 3 days, we also have seen most of the relevant online and even print articles. And yes, print is still a big thing in the German car industry. We love our classic glossy magazines, even if no one really reads them anymore. But or on Steve level, these magazines are still very important. So we have that all in place, and we get that after 72 hours. We revisit our key results, our KPIs, but we also look at media coverage trends, what you see here, as well as the search and information behavior to see if the audience, if fans and potential customers are already truly engaging with the vehicle, if they are getting interested in that model in this case. Yeah. We also analyze our key messages and look if they have been picked up by the media. We call this key message tracking. We do this actually for quite a while, but in the past that was a manual task that you got after weeks. Agencies just went through all the articles and looked if the different key messages were in there. But today, with the help of artificial intelligence, obviously, we can identify whether our messages appear in international media coverage, regardless of the language or the exact wording, could be similar as well. And we can do that much earlier, 3 days. This is, in my opinion, perfect time. You can see, already as I said, in a lot of coverage, if our key messages are integrated or not. And if not, we can immediately do something to improve it. We could try to rephrase it, make it clearer in calls with the media, but we can also maybe highlight it more prominently in upcoming activities. For example, we could give it a C-level executive to include the message in the next interview, or emphasize it in the next driving event. As I said, this is typically the next step after the world premiere. In the case of the A6 e-tron, aerodynamics messaging performed really, really well. However, the e-mobility part on that very important e-model didn't really make it into the media. So that was something that we tried to emphasize in the driving event. And another example is the Q6 e-tron, where we really wanted to have a focus on design, and it didn't really work out. So we've seen that, and coincidentally, there was a marketing event at the Design Week in Milano, like right 2 or 3 weeks after the world premiere. So we brought the car there. We invited some key journalists. We talked about design, took a deep dive there. We also got the message better around the globe. However, didn't really help. The car is still not selling brilliantly, but at least we tried it in this case. Anyway, I think you can see the possibilities of this tool and how we use data and insights to adjust and fine-tune our communication. Almost as important as the key messages is a review of our own channels and the markets. We want to identify which channels are underperforming, which markets have been too quiet, so we can take immediate action. And it's important to do that early to steer against it. The webinar here is called Real-Time Insights, but let's be honest, real-time, what does that actually mean? What does it actually mean? I mean, when the shit hits the fan, you want to know that immediately. And that's exactly why we have alerting systems and crisis communication protocols in place. But when it comes to adjusting the campaign strategy, fine-tuning key messages, I think the window between 3 and 5 days after the launch is perfect. It gives you enough time to reflect, to actually do a decent analysis, and also gives you the time to plan, adapt, and recalibrate your strategy. So that is the 3 days report. We have another one after 10 days. We take an in-depth, it's the results of our 3 days report, but we're also looking into the topics of the car, the aspects, as well as the benchmarking. We're looking at market response, and maybe some content went viral. So this is what we're looking after 10 days. But more important, after 10 days, we also shift focus a little bit. We go from media performance to public opinion. By this time, we want to know if people actually, what they think about the car, and if it had an effect on Audi as a brand or company. And to do so, we run public surveys, perception impact studies throughout the year. In this case, we asked whether people felt well informed about the A6 e-tron and whether they had recent touch points with the brand or the car, more importantly. And this helps us to understand who we've reached and through which channel. In addition, we track ongoing questions related to our strategic key topics, so we can see whether a vehicle or the communication around it actually had an effect on our long-term positioning. Final report is usually after 6 weeks. We conduct a deep dive to our final conclusions. Was our strategy successful? This is a wrap up usually. Then my team runs a debrief meeting where we review the goals and the KPIs we define at the start. We also identify what needs to be adjusted in the ongoing communication campaign. As I said, there will be next milestones, usually test drives, media events, like a car show, for example, or other events. The start of production is usually a communication point, as well as the market launches. So the different markets usually have some events as well. Once we passed all these milestones in a campaign, it's time then to reflect. Finally, we bring all our learnings together, combining media performance with impact and perception insights to create real context and meaningful conclusions. We wrap up, in this case, a 1-year campaign reflecting on what we've learned, and then starting with the next campaign, we are back at the starting line, hopefully sharper, better prepared, and hopefully more effective than before. So we usually hope that we learned something out of it, because communication obviously evolves with every insight, with every challenge, and with every launch that we have. So thank you very much for joining on this little behind the scenes tour, and I hope you get a good sense of how we at Audi turn data into impact.
Flo, thank you very much. That was absolutely fascinating. And I think the value that Audi gets from insights is great to see. And I think the ultimate success in any PR campaign is, would someone buy one? And I think after that presentation, particularly how well designed it was, it mapped very nicely to the principles you mentioned of having quality and beautiful interiors. So I think I'm probably more likely to buy an Audi. So if that's a measure, then you've done it correctly.
I hope you convinced a few more people today. Then. Yeah.
Exactly that. So we've got some great questions coming into the Q&A box already on some different aspects. And I have to just say as well, before I go into them, I think you've built a great model of how comms can feed into relevant buckets. I really like your point where you were talking about consultants being right at the heart of what you're doing at Audi in various stages of the communication process. I think that's something that many organizations struggle with, putting data at the heart of that decision making and having the right people to connect those dots and translate that data into action. I'm going to go through some of the questions one by one that we have in here, and if you're on the line, please feel free to pop more in. As Julie dropped in the chat, if you could put them in the Q&A, it will help us moderate them and help us get to as many questions as possible. So I'm going to start with a question from Nick Pearson. Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining. He's asking, is this process being completed at a global level? And if so, how do you work with regions and national sales companies to ensure that your insights are useful for them and that they're actioned?
Yeah, that is already quite a difficult question at the beginning. Or not, the question is not difficult, but the task to integrate the regions is quite it's quite consuming. The insights usually are focused on the headquarter. We have headquarter communications, and we have steering of the markets. For Audi, it is a bit more difficult maybe as for other companies as well, because all our, you said it, the sales regions are also usually reporting to marketing. or sales, while communications is reporting to the CEO. So we're not reporting to the same person for a start, which makes it sometimes difficult for the markets to prioritize in which direction they should go. If we say like this is the message, we try to streamline that more and see that we're working together. We have monthly calls with the markets. We present the insights to the markets as well, but usually it's more tailored on a global scale, to be honest. But the big regions, US, China, UK, Italy for us is also a really important market. We have a lot of contact and trying to organize that as a whole campaign. Also, I said the market launches usually for the cars are a little bit behind, especially like the US sometimes gets the cars a little bit later than they are getting set in Europe. It's just the models are a little bit different, and that means the communication starts there a little bit later as well. So which we're still working on a whole global communication campaigning, but it's getting better and better every year.
Fantastic. And I think that's always, I feel like that level of challenge is ever present. When you sort of think you've got to the end of that, it kind of starts again, right? To bring new people on board and get that working. Next question is from Nikki, who asks, I think this is linked to the point I mentioned earlier about things fitting with the Audi brand very well. What tools do you use for analysis and reporting? The dashboards look great.
Yes, thank you for that. Anyways, the dashboards are different. Some of them are from our media analysis provider, which right now is for the whole VW group, a Tastic company in Germany. However, most of the slides are built by ourselves. In my team there is a data analyst as well, and she's working with Power BI.
Fantastic. Some beautifully presented data, which really helps tell the story. And now we have a question from Dave Reynolds, who's asking, how much appetite is there outside of your core team for people to use tools and dashboards to access the data themselves? And do you try to encourage them, or do you prefer to act as a bridge to help give them context? This is a sort of age-old, do you deliver something predefined, or do you give them access to a live stream and let them do some of that work themselves? Where do you sit on that scale?
So first of all, hi, Dave. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, this is a core question. To be honest, we still haven't really figured it out. When I joined Audi 9 years ago, we had the first dashboard rollout. That was Cision, and because I come from the other side, basically, I wanted like everyone can have dashboards, like it's democratize this. And I did trainings with everyone. Turned out like from, I don't know, 50 people that we trained, I think 3 people used it actually. The most of them got frustrated. For the rest, it was too complicated. That was 8 years ago. We still want the people to use the dashboards, and I think the appetite is growing. There are more and more people who don't want to wait for me to send out something. They want to check it. They want to check it like right away. That's the reason why we are preparing the dashboards right now, and then we're sharing them. So, for example, the last week was our annual media conference. I built a dashboard for that, and I shared it with the core team, so they could actually see how media is developing. And I think that works well. Especially younger colleagues also want to work with the dashboards, but it needs to be, if you're not in the middle of it, if it's not your job in the center, then as I said, you could easily get frustrated. It needs to be really, really easy, and you need to get the results that you want to have really, really quickly. Otherwise, they push it away. And I think we still want to roll out this, that the projects can actually see what's going on for the campaign. But I doubt that they will all be able to build dashboards if they have the time to build dashboards and stuff like that.
So do you think, Flo, that there's really still a bit of way for the industry to go to really have user-friendly products that democratize that access? There's a way for the industry to go to get to that point where truly everybody can use that data.
Yeah, I think this is the main task. If the tools are easy to use and get to the results quickly, that is a huge benefit, hopefully. Yeah.
So you heard it here first. Look at that. If you're a vendor, free market research. So a great one here from Ben, actually asking a little bit more about the AI-based message pull through that you spoke about, which is something we're also experimenting with. So Ben's asking, is this a process that you've built in-house? Are you using an external vendor for this? And have you seen accurate results in line with what you expect to see, and in line with a manual process? Are you happy and satisfied with how that's working?
Yeah. Actually, we're really happy. We worked on that for a year now. So now we are really happy. We are using a vendor for that. Same that I've said before. Or it's a mix of both, to be honest. We have an in-house system, which is also our planning tool, and we have a whole key message tracking tool, not tracking tool, a key message using tool. So all our markets can go in there looking for example, for design, and then see the top 3 messages for design. They can do that for every topic, and everyone in the world who's working for Audi can do that. And our goal is to look at all these messages and see how they have been picked up within in their topic. For example, if we don't want to have it's not a bad if a design message is not in a performance article or something like that, for example. So we want to see how if an article is about design, then our design message should be in there. So this is what we're looking there on a constant way. But we also, as I said before, we check the different key messages within a campaign or within an event. And for these events with which is structured and you know exactly how many articles are in there, the results are really good. We have I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. There are two different ways a message can be in there. One is partially included, and the one is explicitly included. And explicitly actually means that this key message is in there, not copy and paste, but the meaning is in there. And partially is it, yeah, it's kind of touching it or something like that. And the system is picking that up really, really well.
That's fantastic to hear, and a great use case of where AI can really help us move on in communications measurement
really quick as well.
in a way that previously you'd always have to do manually, particularly if you're looking for slightly different words. It's far better than a keyword search.
Yeah, also if the different parts are different in the article or something, it gets it together as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And good that you've seen accurate results. And Nick asks, do you find these learnings really change things? And have you really moved from backpatting, the thing that is most common in comms evaluation? Great, we did a great job. Have you really moved on from that? And do you think these learnings are really changing approaches?
It depends. To be honest, in most cases, it is the case let's start differently. They like you when you present a really good analysis on that thing. Then you have the best meeting of all times. It really is really nice. And oh, that's great work, by the way, for this analysis. And you did that so well. That usually happens when you present good results. If the results are not that bad, everyone obviously has something to criticize about the method or the metrics or the way it was done, or they have excuses or something like that. But we really had, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, we really had some good some good discussions in our management team, in the leadership team, where we talked about things that have to change, and that changed. Yeah, it's like always, you need to know who to go to if you want to have something changed. On the project level, it works really well. Like, we're really having an impact on choosing the right journalists coming to the events, and this is a main key to success. To be honest, if we are not inviting the right people, and in the auto industry, like, the lists usually were full of traditional automotive journalists, and we're now switching it more and more towards social media. And this was a big journey for us, to be honest. And we could only make that happen with data, because we showed them the impact social media can have compared to Automotor Sport, which is a classic German automotive magazine.
Thank you, Flo. And Diego Baronzo also has an interesting question. He's got an eagle eye. He's been analyzing your charts. He asks a question that on the channel split on one of the charts that you showed on the screen had an unusually low share of X content. As usually, content from most mainstream listening tools is heavily skewed towards X. And there is a question there, right, about sort of how you balance that. And yeah, can you tell us as to how you achieved a more balanced view?
So also hi to Diego. It's like the whole class comes together today. Hope you're doing well. Well, the problem with Twitter or X in the past, I think, was that it was overbalanced, overvalued in terms of who is actually seeing your content. So, for example, if you have like 1 million followers, every post goes in with 1 million or whatever. I think this was, if you compare that to an article in high valued online source, that's not really fair, isn't it? Because especially on X, everything runs through so quickly. You can barely see everything from everyone. So this 1 million followers will probably not see this content. So what we're trying to do with the help of our vendor is to get the right mix, the right metrics that you can actually compare online, social to each other, as well as TV, and have a matrix that you can actually compare with, and this is behind that. Yeah, he says X is usually high. I'm not sure if that is true in the UK. However, what I've seen, usually X in Germany is not. It's getting less and less relevant, especially in the automotive industry.
I think the debate is open on that, but you bring up a very good point, which is country by country, the split is incredibly different, right? And the rate at which those things change and by demographic are also very different. So sometimes we're skewed by the country that we happen to live in, and it can be a different picture in many of those. I'm gonna pick just one more. We have a few more questions in the box, but I'm gonna pick just one more because Flo, you've been very gracious in giving us your time, a fantastic presentation, and I'm sure we could go on discussing this for a very long time because it's a very interesting subject. But I'm going to pick up a question from Grishma, who's asked how you distinguish between activity-based metrics and the outcomes of your campaign, and are your communicators and stakeholders able to connect the dots between both and understand larger impact? So I guess this is a bit around the sort of elements that you mentioned in terms of your output metrics, and then the polling that you do in that outcome.
Yeah, I think you never really know in the end where it comes from. The point of if the point of view changes, it can also maybe is because someone bought a car and liked it or not, or did not like it. But we're trying to narrow it down and see if we distinguish something or not. as I said, we're trying to do that with the questions of the touch points. So we want to see if people really have, if people read something about our cars, if they visited our website, if they visited social media, if they heard through influencers about Audi, and this is how we narrow it down. If they have then a better view on Audi and on the car than people who didn't have the touch point, then I think we have already a correlation here. Correlation is the right word? No, correlation. Sorry. Jason, I've seen your comment as well, so thank you.
Yeah, Jason, there's a few recognitions of how great the presentation was. So again, a brilliant outcome success measure. But I think I really liked, Flo, your sort of method of within actually a very short time frame, asking important stakeholder groups what they sort of understood, whether they're aware of that model, particularly where it's a new model, where there may not be a legacy, to really connect how comms has influenced that. We have a similar challenge that getting exactly to causation is pretty tricky, but if you're asking the right questions, particularly in a short time frame, you can at least see perhaps your before and after and where that picture has gone.
And let me add something there, because that fits to one of the earlier questions. That Pulse helped us because I'm not sure, I can't remember which car it was anymore, but we had like huge success media-wise, like reach, tonality, all fine. Like everyone was like, yeah. And then I came up with a Pulse, and it's like, but like we didn't reach the people out there. It was an electric cop model, so I was like, we like people did not change their view on Audi, on us in terms of e-mobility, and our strategy, etc. So obviously something went wrong here, and that helped us because we then identified that we've invited the wrong media, because we just invited old classic automotive media, which people in the funnel usually only need a little bit later. But we were in the beginning of the funnel. We want to have we want to get out there with a message and spread it as much as possible. And for that, you need influencers and the power of social media. This is so this helped us to invite more influencers to especially to our driving events.
Fantastic. And you know what? We have. I'm going to try a new way of doing this, because we've got a couple that I think you could probably answer quick fire. So I'm going to ask you the question, and then you're gonna do a quick fire answer, like in seconds. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Because I think you can probably do this, and you're a friend of mine, so I'm sure I can put you on the spot. So well, I'll try and make them quick fire. So from Jack, with the upcoming launch of the Audi brand in China, what's going to be the most important channel? So we're going to go. Is it going to be traditional social? Is it going to be Weibo, WeChat? What's the most important channel in China?
So channel or challenge?
Channel.
Channel. Well, my idea about China is not that great, but it's definitely social media. Obviously, social media is kicking everything. I can't tell if it's Weibo or WeChat, but we had the launch already last year, and social media was big there. And if you go and have a look at Xiaomi, they work with social media as well. So yeah, definitely social.
Brilliant. That was a great quickfire answer. Last one. In terms of how you pick up your messages and penetration, what is the balance between AI and human? Is it 50%, 50%, 70% AI, 30% human? What level are you at?
In the message tracking, you mean?
Correct.
I think it's 80% AI.
Brilliant. Look at that. Quickfire. We got through all of them.
There was only two questions in quickfire then, okay.
Only two on quickfire. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Flo. Flo, that was an absolutely fantastic presentation. Thank you for lending your time to the Amec community to explain to us how Audi uses insights. I think there are many things that I'm going to pull up on this use, and thank you, Amec community, for the fantastic participation in the Q&A. But it doesn't end there. So Flo's brilliant part ends Now, unfortunately, you
Let me
have
say
me.
thank you, Kyle. It was a pleasure to be here.
And stick around,
Welcome to
Flo.
the back.
Stick around for our next few minutes, because it's
I
also
do.
exciting.
Okay, I will.
So, thank you for that, Flo. I am going to just briefly share my screen and just mention a couple of housekeeping points. Um, so, first of all, Amec Summit in Vienna this year. It's 10th to the 12th of June. We have a fantastic venue and a brilliant lineup of speakers. If you want to hear from people like Flo and others who are really experts in measurement and evaluation, this is a #1 event where you're going to get to meet all of those people in one room and hear from best practice. So the roll call of speakers has started to be announced. So if you're an Amec member, you may have got an email today. If you haven't, check your inbox. If you're not an Amec member, go onto the Amec website and sign up, and you can see this. But these are just two of the fantastic speakers that we already have on board for this year's summit. We've got Jim McNamara, distinguished professor of public communications at University of Technology Sydney. We have Mary Beth West as well, both already announced. If you go to the Amec LinkedIn page, you'll see a bit more about what they're going to be talking about. But these are some of the foremost people in this space. So if you want to hear from them and take their excellent knowledge, please come to the summit where you can. Jono, is there anything you want to add about the summit?
Hi, Kyle. No, just that, obviously this is a in-person and hybrid event, and the best networking is always at the in-person event. But the the program and the discussions that will take place there are things that will help elevate and escalate any of the conversations that you're having internally, including one that will be led by yourself, Kyle. So I think, those brand insights and the teams that are struggling with some of those elements really have an opportunity to save by the investment in the conference and learn from other brands of what they're doing and how they can either take advantage of those learnings and take advantage of where they've found the trial and error process particularly painful by not repeating that.
Exactly that. Thanks, Jono. And thanks for reminding me about the both virtual and in person. So preference is in person, but there's also virtual passes if you cannot make it to Vienna. If you want to hear a bit more about that as well, feel free to reach out to me or to Jono or Julie, who can give a bit more information. But I'll just finish in the last couple of minutes, just saying a bit about the Amec in-house group, really, which is a relatively new group at Amec, but it aims to bring in-house professionals together to discuss many of the challenges that Flo was talking about just now. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Flo, you don't need to answer it, so don't worry, you're off the hook. But one of the things I was going to ask you actually is how you've implemented that process of change. This is one of the common things for in-house professionals that we really struggle with is the culture shift, the mindset shift, and how we do that. And that's just one of the challenges that we tackle as the Amec in-house group. So if you are a member, thank you for being a member and come to the summit. If you aren't a member and want to hear a bit more about what Amec does, please reach out and we can discuss it. If there are any other questions as well in the Q&A, we will get to that. But thank you all for joining and participating in this session. And thank you very much, Flo, for giving your time and energy to Amec today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here.